who died last night. The 95-year-old played Dot Cotton on EastEnders for 35 years. Speaking on the hard shoulder here on News Talk, Irish actor Patrick Bergin, who was on the show in 2017, says she was a great character.
She was so truthful and something so direct about her, and obviously her unique voice and humour that oozed from every pore.
That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Early birds catch the sun. Early bookers get the best summer prices with Ryanair.
Tonight will be cloudy with some outbreaks of rain and drizzle. Lowest temperatures of 5 to 9 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
Hey there, welcome along. Monday evening, Joe with you this evening. Leinster, Munster talk and the Women's Six Nations with Jerry Thornley and Liam Tolan. That's on the way on Monday Night Rugby after 8 o'clock. Pat and Evan on the football show then. Title decider countdown is very much on. We have Manchester United misery continuing and Arsenal in action this evening, looking to reclaim fourth spot from Spurs. And of course, David Clifford, the player of his, and we suspect increasingly several other generations. Billy Joe Padden is with us on Kerry's All-Ireland to Lose at 7:30. 53106, the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. We'll do the hurling tomorrow with Tommy Welch, where we'll discuss Waterford's All-Ireland to Lose. Richie McCormick, evening.
You're underselling Kerry and David Clifford a bit there, Joe, if you're best of his generation and an All-Ireland to Lose. You're not set up to fail at all there.
I'm investing in the Clifford Kerry stock. To that end, Richie, we had a special request this afternoon. It came from on high. Owen Sheehan with us to unofficially accept the 2022 All-Ireland on behalf of Kerry this evening. Owen, congratulations. Congratulations.
Nice one. Thanks very much, Joe. Cheers, Richie. Really appreciate it. Great to be here.
How does it feel?
Feels good. I mean, national leagues don't come along very often, except for half of it last year and the full thing the year before, which don't really count. But I don't know. Like, this is, I mean, everybody's going to just get so much joy out of Kerry's collapse if it happens this year, right? This is the subtext to all of this. Everybody realises that deep down, they loved seeing Tyrone ambush Kerry last summer, and they want to see the same thing again this year, because Kerry will be built up to an even bigger height this year, I suspect. You
know what might swing the neutral, though, genuinely, is David Clifford. The boy wonder is just that wonderful. 1-6 yesterday. Like I said, he's certainly already the player of his generation, and there's going to be a case made for several other. Besides, if he keeps going on this current trajectory, it was just, again, wonderful. And he's got this distinctive gait and style, and it's all very much his own. And the sky's the limit here. I mean, we really could be talking about this guy as the best player any of us will have seen. And that's hyperbole, of course. But, you know, as glorious as, I don't know, who, if we're going back to various generations, you can take your pick from a few Dublin players, and then I suppose the mantle goes to Gooch, and before that, Peter Canavan. And I really don't think it'll be too much of a stretch to say in a decade, if Clifford keeps going like this, that you will have exceeded all before him. And I never thought I'd really be talking in those terms about Gooch, for instance. Like, you just, you know, whoever's coming, you just have Gooch on a par with.
My childhood is being destroyed by David Clifford here, basically. My Gooch memories, the greatest player I've ever seen is David Clifford's just coming along and ripping that to shreds already. And I do think that you've got to wait for an All-Ireland to happen before you can start talking about him in those terms, only because he's from Kerry, and that's the only way he's going to be judged. Like, I think maybe in the path of Maurice Fitzgerald, I think that maybe the jury was not out, but still I think his legacy was cemented from 97 and 2000. Gooch obviously was winning All-Irelands very early on. But what's really interesting is that Clifford is part of a generation of forward and leading it that have changed the game completely over the last little while, where they are so explosive that they completely destroy defences on their own from open play. His statistics from open play are going to go down historically, I suspect, in a few years' time. And I think that's probably why a lot of people invited the Con O'Callaghan versus David Clifford comparisons a couple of years ago when Con was fit and firing on all cylinders, because both of these kids were doing something that was truly unique, that they were not tapping frees over. Not that anybody taps frees over, but that they weren't padding their statistics, to use a very harsh phrase. They were destroying their man from open play and just putting up wondrous scores, again, from open play. And I think that's what really makes it all very special.
Yeah. I feel like none of his teammates, Richie, were making contact with Pádraig O'Hora for much of the game yesterday. No, you're doing good. You're doing good. The 1v1 thing is working out well.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, and God, that these days are kind of piling up upon themselves from Mayo, whereby they'll look back and think, yeah, if we just done that, then maybe. But I think Kerry were that good yesterday. I don't think anybody, even on their best day, probably would have touched them, regardless of what kind of form they're in. But yeah, it's that interesting question about Clifford, because I don't think he will be. Like, I know there's people probably screaming at you at the minute in terms of talking about him as one of the greats, because there is a sense that that talent and all of that ability needs to be capped with an All-Ireland. And until that happens, I think a lot of people will talk about him not necessarily as being in, like, regardless of the stats and regardless of what we can literally see in front of us. There are some people who will say that he's not at that level until he actually has a Celtic cross in his back pocket.
Now, thankfully for him, he has just turned 23, so he is going to win several All-Irelands, I would wager, at this stage. And this year, Owen, I mean, to score 319 at Croke Park against a Division 1 side like Mayo, and then to hold them to 13 points, either feat on its own would be pretty impressive. To manage both really catches the eye. This was a real statement performance. I mean, at this juncture, it does look like they're head and shoulders above the rest. What Jack O'Connor's done has been incredibly impressive. The defence is teak tough now and organised, and they conceded just one goal from open play across the entire campaign. And Paddy Tally's arrived in, and I was reading Dermot Crowder piece in the Sunday Independent yesterday, where he was talking to, for instance, Stephen Stack, former Kerry player, and he was suggesting that there wasn't maybe enough humility about Kerry players in previous years when they lost the ball, and that has all changed now. So you look at the defence, you look at the spine of the team, you look at the attack, you look at Clifford. Who's the bolter most likely to stop them?
Tyrone, possibly again.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they've finished the league in good form. They've had a lot of players who've walked away from the panel, and maybe that'll come home to roost as the Ulster Championship rages on. You're also kind of looking towards a Dublin charge, and Kerry will meet Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final if they both come through their provinces and they win their quarterfinals. That is the draw. And if Kerry have a soft enough route to that semi-final, you definitely give Dublin a puncher's chance of beating them, especially given the 15 players that they'll start with. The Mayo thing is obviously going to be a factor. I don't think anybody really thinks that's the real Mayo that we saw yesterday. They were bad, and a 15-point defeat is concerning, but that's all it is. They have time. They have 2 weeks to Galway. That's the concern. Yeah. But beyond that, they'll still be alive even if they lose, because they're obviously not in Division 3 or 4. So there's time for them to get it right. I'm not sure it's even a bolt, or it's a situation of who will stylistically match up with Kerry and take them out, basically. But I do think that what you mentioned there, the new element to Kerry, is actually more important than David Clifford this year. The Paddy Tally element. Like, I've heard that players are getting phone calls off him even outside of training sessions to discuss game plan, and the way that he has taken some of these defenders and taken their collective level to a whole other standard is really remarkable. Like, there was questions for Kerry at number 1, at number 3, at number 6 at the end of last season. All those 3 positions have been locked down, and in particular in the aftermath of yesterday, they seem to have been locked down. That is a huge leap forward for Kerry, league title or not. That is the one thing that they needed to sort out this year in the early throws of the spring, and they've absolutely nailed it. You have to hand it to Jack O'Connor and his management team. Yeah,
he's a serial winner. We should get on with the Newsround. It is, as ever, brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Richie, you're starting with the game yesterday.
Yeah, Kerry put their poor recent record at Croke Park behind them to seal back-to-back Alliance League titles. David Clifford kicked 1-5 from play, 1-6 in total, as the Kingdom beat Mayo 319 to 13 points. Before yesterday, Kerry had only won 1 of their previous 11 visits to HQ. While Roscommon will return to the top flight as Division 2 champions, they beat Galway by a solitary point yesterday, with Anthony Cunningham saying that they too had a point to prove at Croke Park.
Yeah, well, last weekend we had to win to get promoted, and this weekend we wanted a performance. You know, because last couple of times the guys didn't probably play up to their level in Croke Park, so the more times you play here the better, and it builds confidence, and you'll see Mayo and Kerry and all the teams play well here, so we want to epitomise that and get up to that level.
Oh, and I know you were at Croker yesterday. I was keeping an eye on that game in here in studio, as well as doing other things on several occasions I looked up, and the quality of point taking in this game, this Galway Roscommon game, was really eye-catching. Some very stylish kicks.
It was an incredible game, and I'm pretty sure both teams played sweepers, and the opposition attack just ignored it, and each set of forwards managed to come out on top. In particular, the Roscommon forwards, they were absolutely outstanding. Obviously, you had one Murta who was kicking points beforehand, and then Diarmuid Murta comes off the bench to kick 1-1, including that brilliant goal. A couple of other forwards. Doherty Smith had one of his better games I've ever seen in a Roscommon shirt. You had this brilliant battle around the middle third between Enda Smith and Kieran Malloy, just following each other all around the pitch. And then for Galway, a couple of their forwards had a good game, but really their sharpshooter was Paul Conroy from midfield, who has turned himself into one of the best point takers playing in the middle third at the moment. An absolutely extraordinary performance from him. One of the best you're ever likely to see from a losing side in Croke Park. But Roscommon deserves serious credit, because I had Galway maybe as a better team than Roscommon on paper. And when Galway made that comeback yesterday, I was like, okay, form has evened itself out. The winners will come home now, and Galway will be lifting that trophy. But Roscommon said no, and I think they were a real threat on the other side of that. On that Connacht draw this year, Mayo and Galway obviously playing each other. Roscommon in a Connacht final, I presume, is going to be a very, very sticky prospect for either of those two teams.
Yeah. Somebody says, delighted for David Clifford. The sledging he received yesterday was unbelievable. He answered in the best way possible by destroying the Mayo defence. I hope that will end the abuse he gets at games in future. Connor in Limerick. I can tell you it won't. And somebody else says, you're not doing Clifford any favours. He hasn't won an All-Ireland yet. Excellent footballer that he is. Give the guy a chance. FFS. Well, I mean,
sorry, Joe.
Yeah, go on.
It's just on that first comment. I do think that he does need to be protected to a certain extent, but he's well able to look after himself. And there's some Mayo fans alleging that Pádraig O'Hora was well within his rights to give him an earful yesterday. Let's put it like that. I didn't see exactly what happened, but I think David Clifford, after what happened in Eden Dork in the league in 2020, when he got sent off after being sledged, he's learned the ropes at this point. He can look after himself at this point. He's a big fella. I would have limited sympathy on that front. And as Tommy Welch said on the show last week, DJ Kerry used to answer his sledgers by making a count on the scoreboard, and that's exactly what Clifford will do. I think there's a little bit of two tangoing yesterday in Croke Park.
Okay. Well, I mean, we've seen Clifford several times over the last year, 18 months, not least against Dublin. He's got plenty of niggle about him, plenty of bite. This isn't, Gooch being bullied by the Armagh boys. Like, he's more than holding his own. Like, I think you can misread sometimes a flair player or an attacking player as being creative and not a cynical bone in their body. Like, he's got a fire about him, actually, which, again, he's got the full tapestry.
This morning as well. Yeah, Anthony Moyles is making that point this morning as well, and AM saying he's no angel himself. And even like it touched on something. I was talking to Arthur and the team there just before the show. We were talking about the Shane Warne book on Warne by Gideon Haig, which if anybody hasn't read it yet should. It's just an incredible bit of writing. But throughout that is peppered these stories of how Warne, who was the most incredible natural talent in terms of spin bowling, would just sledge the almighty God out of whoever was coming to the crease, and he would have certain targets that he knew he could probably get more change out of than others. And you're talking about people who are, experienced and really good batsmen and had fantastic averages. And he, still needed that little bit extra to get over the line and to maybe create a little bit of uncertainty in their heads. And it's all part and parcel. Once it doesn't overstep a line, I think it's fine. But you need that kind of edge, I think, in a game.
I also think on the texture saying, "I'll give it a chance." He has, before you blow him up too much, he hasn't even won an All Ireland. I don't fully subscribe to the notion that we can only judge greatness by dint of how many All Irelands are won. Like, I don't think any less of Maurice Fitzgerald in the pantheon of great players because he has won All Ireland. I mean, his greatness was just so self-evident. If David Clifford somehow kept producing this kind of form and didn't win an All Ireland, you telling me he's still not one of the greats? Of course he is.
I think maybe the Kerry thing is the context there, is it? That's just the judgment for any player from Kerry. I think every year is a disaster.
Is Morris, though, like, not the poor relation with one All Ireland, and yet could he be held in higher esteem?
Well, I think actually because he came through the, in inverted commas, famine of 86 to 97 and actually led them to 97 and was there, of course, in 2000 as well, obviously, as well. He's got his second All-Ireland.
True.
I think that maybe makes it a little bit further. I think that he was clearly head and shoulders the best player of that team, whereas this Kerry team is different. Like Sean O'Shea wasn't even playing yesterday, and he could arguably be the second best player in the country, or at least the second best forward in the country. There's a number of other players there as well, like Gavin White, for example. I mean, we saw a glimpse of him for the first time in a while yesterday. Absolutely electric, arguably the answer to Jack McCaffrey in a post-Jack McCaffrey world. So this Kerry team is absolutely star-studded, is the wider picture here, and that is why there is an expectation on Clifford as well, because he's just part of it, and that just allows him to do his thing to an even greater extent.
Yeah, and there was actually, I mean, amidst all the competitiveness and a bit of sledging and pushing, there was a nice moment after the goal where Pádraig O'Hara admitted defeat and just gave him a little pat, which was, you know, all is fair in those kind of moments, as if to say, yeah, that was, God damn it, that was good. There's only so much I can do here. So Waterford, meanwhile, they also, I mean, akin to Kerry, Richie, we had the two league winners putting in signature type performances here.
Yeah, they warmed up for the start of the Munster Championship by claiming a first Hurling League title in a decade. They beat Cork 420 to 123 on Saturday evening, with those goals taking their tally to 22 for the league campaign as a whole. Speaking of WLR after Saturday evening's game, Daisha boss Liam Gaal was asked whether the emphasis on green flags was something they'd sought out.
Yeah, well, we've tried to. It's a work in progress over the last couple of years. We've tried really hard to you know, you always look at the type of players you have at your disposal to work with and what suits them best. And you know, we've a good young team, good hurlers, and are you know, fairly athletic as we'll say. So it's the type of game that suits us. And when you know, when you run hard and you get that sweat across your head, like openings happen, and you know, we have forwards now with a bit of belief that when they get in on goal they have a chance of a green flag. So we'll continue to try and improve that as we go along.
I think Waterford are going to change the attitude across the game to goals and going for goals. It's bloody hard to stop someone in hurling if they turn and run towards the goal full speed, and more often than not they find success, and Cahill has implemented that from day one. I mean, their motto in his first year was to go for it, and boy are they going for it, and you can see year on year they get better at it. This team is serious. Like, this is Waterford's best chance of winning an All-Ireland in a very long time. They have so many marquee, stellar players. You even think of the semi-final when Ozzie Gleeson was to the fore, Desi Hutchinson was to the fore, and over the weekend Gleeson is suspended, and they didn't appeal that suspension, which was telling. I think Cal was like, right, what better way to get you humming for the summer? And equally Hutchinson then was quiet by comparison with the semi-final performance, but in steps Stephen Bennett, for instance, and they're missing a few other big names as well. I mean, bring on the Limerick game.
Yeah, I know it's bring on the Limerick versus Waterford game is what you mean there, but I think bring on Limerick versus Cork first day out, because I still think that Limerick maybe have a gear that no other team in the country can get to. We'll probably have a fair idea after week one whether or not they're going to be able to get to that gear this year again, or whether or not the league concerns were real. So we'll know week one, Limerick against Cork and Páirc Uí Chaoimh, obviously before Ed Sheeran takes over, where Limerick are at. With regards to Waterford, 9 goals in 2 games, and I think Owen Cormack and the Examiner picked up on this, is that all the goals, the technique was exactly the same at the weekend, where it was hit it in the grass right in front of the keeper, that bounce that's very, very hard for a keeper to stop. It's clearly been a skill that they've worked on over the last little while. Tactically, they're taking that extra pass or going around the last line of defence a little bit more this year as well. It's a sense of aggression which is clearly targeted at one thing and one thing only, which is Limerick. The only way to beat them is by getting 4 or 5 goals in a game.
Yeah. Rich, then we have football here and obviously over in the Premier League tonight.
Yeah, 3 games here at home tonight. Derry City can open up a 6-point lead at the top of the SSE Electricity Premier Division. The Candy Stripes away to the league's bottom side, UCD. And it's 9th plays 8th in Ballybuffet, with Finn Harps entertaining Doherty United. In the First Division, Athlone have just a solitary point to their name ahead of tonight's game away to Treaty United. And across the water, Arsenal can leapfrog above Tottenham to 4th in the Premier League table tonight. Mikel Arteta's side across the Thames to play Crystal Palace, and there's an 8 p.m. start at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, I think Wayne Rooney's on Monday Night Football this evening, which might be worth a look in studio. He's been asked about United a lot already, judging by my Twitter. He's been asked. He said the Ronaldo thing hasn't worked. Paul Pogba should move on, and Pochettino is his man to take over at United, and not Ten Hag. Interesting. So on Arsenal this evening, they're looking to take 4th spot back from Spurs, who were brilliant against Newcastle. We touched on Matt Doherty in the Sunday paper review yesterday, because he was speaking to the media and he was talking about his low point at Spurs, which came not shockingly under Jose Mourinho last year. And they had travelled to a game away to Aston Villa, and Doherty was amongst those picked to travel, and he was getting off the bus to go into the dressing room when poor old Ledley King had to come up to him and say, actually, you're not in the squad. and therefore you're not allowed into the dressing room because of COVID, so you have to stay on the bus. And Matt Doherty said, I was just sitting on the bus on my own. I was so close to getting in the car because we had an Irish get-together in Manchester for the international weekend. I didn't in the end. I decided I'd stay and watch the game and then go. I'm glad. It wouldn't have been professional. And no disrespect to kids, but there were kids on that bench, and there was a 16-year-old on the bench in his place. Mourinho sacked the following month. It did just occur to myself and Tommy Martin and Kieran Cunningham yesterday on the paper review, Owen, if this is how Mourinho is treating pros of a certain stature in the dressing room, it's no wonder he's been losing dressing rooms consistently for over a decade now.
Yeah, geez, I hadn't actually heard that, or I don't think it was public knowledge until Matt Doherty spoke about it over the last couple of days. You just have to feel absolutely delighted for the transformation, because what would anybody else have done in that situation? It's sort of, I'd say, it would have been a pretty screw this mentality to a lot of people in that moment. But like, Conte has clearly seen what Doherty can do. He's seen something similar to clearly what Stephen Kenny has seen over the last little while, where Matt Doherty can play on the left or the right, and obviously played on the left hand side yesterday in the 5-1 win against Newcastle, because I think maybe Jose had him down as a right back, and that was that really. Whereas he's in a more advanced position this year. Got a goal yesterday. Was it one assist? Maybe it was more than one assist yesterday on top of that. And he's just been it's just been absolutely sensational over the last little while. Conte, in fairness, when he did come in, you're thinking to yourself, right, who's going to be his Victor Moses this time? Could it have been Matt Doherty? So it's not entirely unexpected, but it is still one of the twists of the season, which most Irish fans are just absolutely delighted to see.
He was saying as well in the same interview, he's watching his diet closer now. He says, at home, you don't dip into that sweet drawer. And I'm sure everyone has. You know you're getting weighed before a game, and you know you've got some body fat testing coming up. You don't want to give the manager any excuses. You want to be ready for him. So he seems like he's got everybody on their toes. No ketchup, of course, as well. Crucially, Antonio Conte. Hey lads, Tiger at Augusta. Champions never forget how to win. 50-1. I'm on it, says Tony. I mean, the Tiger Woods thing. The man has not lost his propensity for the dramatic. So he's at Augusta at the moment. Was playing the back nine yesterday, certainly, and hitting shots, and according to various golf journalists on Twitter, hitting the thing bloody well too. So it's just incredible.
The
making
excitement
a
in your
game day
voice.
decision, is that what he said?
Yeah, game day decision. Do you interpret that as Thursday morning?
I interpret that as Thursday morning. Yeah, he wakes up on Thursday morning, decides, you know what, feeling this, hands his whatever he needs to do into the office there in the cabin, and says, away I go. And you know what, he'll probably card a respectable round for Thursday. Beyond that, that's where the question lies, you know, because geez, it's an awful slog, especially for somebody who hasn't played in as long as he has, or hasn't, as it were. But yeah, God knows he's taken all the attention away from everybody else in the lead up to this thing.
Man, a month ago, if you said Tiger was playing Augusta, Phil Mickelson isn't. I mean, it's incredible. So, well, we'll be talking about it on the show this week. Lawrence Donegan probably join us on Wednesday to preview. But it does seem, based on the pictures, as if Tiger's swinging the club very, very well, and he's been walking around Augusta for the last few days. Richie, where are we going next?
To Leinster, Andrew Porter and Ronan Kelleher could make their returns for the province in their Heineken Champions Cup tie with Connacht. Both have stepped up their training programmes this week, having suffered respective ankle and shoulder injuries during the Six Nations. Jordan Larmour is also back in the mix after missing the Six Nations with a hip injury. Leinster go to the sports ground on Friday before Connacht visit the Aviva 7 days later.
Louis van Gaal then.
Yeah, sad news about Louis van Gaal. He's revealed even that he's battling prostate cancer. The 70-year-old is in his third spell as Netherlands head coach and is due to guide them to the World Cup in Qatar later this year. Van Gaal made the revelation in an interview with RTL last night and claimed his national team didn't know. The Dutch FA, the KNVB, refused to reveal today how long they've been aware of his condition, but Captain Virgil van Dijk said today that the news was indeed a shock.
I was also in shock last night when I heard his interview, because obviously he's getting his film out next week. So I was just wondering how he would promote it a little bit and speak about his life, and then obviously that was a big shock. And obviously I messaged him after the interview, and but yeah, it definitely says a lot about him. I said to him as well, he's not that type of guy that needs a lot of sympathy. That's how he is. But I told him as well that we are definitely going to be there for him as a group whenever he needed. And hopefully we can also make it for him a World Cup to never forget.
Well, you wish him well. I hadn't quite had him pegged for 70, even though he's been around forever, so it's not a shock, but he's still just such a kind of forceful person and full head of hair and hasn't changed much in the last maybe 15, 20 years really in appearance. He was saying, Van Gaal, in each period during my time as manager of the national team, I had to leave in the night to go to hospital without the players finding out until now. You don't die from prostate cancer, at least not in 90% of cases. It's usually other underlying diseases that kill you. But I had a pretty aggressive form, got treated 25 times, and then you have a lot of management to do in order to go through life. I did have preferential treatment in the hospital. I was allowed to go in through the back door when I had an appointment and was immediately pushed into another room. I've been treated wonderfully. So there you go, Owen. You wish him well.
Oh God, absolutely. Like as Richie said, we'd kind of no idea about this until the last couple of days, and it's just strange timing considering Van Gaal had been in the news quite a lot over the last few weeks, and it seemed that he'd been one of the real voices of moral sense in terms of everything that's going on at the moment. You can't say anything but to wish him well over the next little while, and that, Jesus, to keep that completely secret from his players, that's absolutely incredible. Not even to try and let that one out of the bag.
Yeah. Rich, do you want to give us one last story, whatever you fancy?
The GEA say the viable integration of the LGFA and the Camogie Association is central to their new strategic plan. The document sets forth the association's vision up to 2026. Director General Tom Ryan said today the plan is about future-proofing the association against whatever challenges may lie ahead. A mid-term review will be conducted in 2024.
Okay. Richie, thanks a mil.
Nice, lads.
Owen Sheehan, congratulations on Kerry's winning the 2022 All-Ireland. Well done. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, lads. Appreciate it.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.
Well, it's worth noting at this stage, since the cash machine started, we have given away over €1 million. So this afternoon, Monica was picking up the kids. She got the call from Barry, gave him the right number. So she starts off the week with €10,000. Thank you very much. We have reloaded the cash machine for tomorrow. The new amount is €10,239.42 up for grabs. So to be in with a chance of winning, all you have to do is text the word play to 57599. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. And then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. Tell him the exact amount in euro and cents. And the cash is yours. So again, the amount for tomorrow, €10,239.42. Text play to 57599. Over 18s only. Text costs €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play, and you are playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Did you know that right now, Carew protects the public by regulating over 22,000 health and social care professionals in Ireland? So far, registers are open for dietitians, dispensing opticians, medical scientists, occupational therapists,